Welcome back to episode number 10. Today we're going to be talking about the foundations of strength and resistance training. So, Mr. John, what do we know about strength?
Well, we know a lot of things. So, I've been doing strength training for a long time. I've even been a strength and conditioning coach. The one thing I would say that is incredibly important about strength training is progressive overload. So progressive overload just basically means you are progressively overloading your body's system with weight. So I like to tell my clients whenever we're training, you should be moving up like very gradually each time you're lifting.
Right. Can you define strength?
So strength, in medical terms, is your ability to produce force. So in a squat, if you can lift, or if you can squat 300 pounds, that is a relative way to define your strength. But if you can't squat the 300 pounds, then you're not strong enough to lift 300 pounds. So it sounds very straightforward. But
So are we going to be talking about the context of like a fitness program, or like strength in the way of like protecting our bodies from weakness and atrophy and like frailty?
both.
Both?
Yeah.
So I think the context of like increasing weight is pretty popular for like bodybuilders and Olympic athletes, who are, the purpose of their training is to literally increase the amount of weight they can put on the bar, but that might be foreign to most people. So if we can think about Wolff's Law, right, the use it or lose it phenomenon, which basically means that if you do not impose a stress, or if you don't impose a progressive overload like you're talking about,
New demands.
and a demand on the tissue, then you're not going to get an adaptation to adapt to that stimulus. So if you do not use it, you will atrophy. So
Yeah, and that's also like a very big sticking point for people who are strong, but for some reason they can't get stronger. Yeah, they're lifting heavy things, but is it something new? Is it something that they haven't experienced before that is causing adaptations? And that can be really challenging when you do get to those heavier weights, because you're like, I'm like squatting 300 pounds, 315. Why can't I move up? Why can't I do this? Well, it's because you're not doing it slow enough, if that makes sense. You still need to progress, but you have to do it in such a way that it's not too much too fast, but it's also not enough.
have you come personally in contact with sticking points?
Yeah, I would say I have. Right now, I'm not necessarily training to break plateaus, but I have gotten much better at addressing them when they occur.
How do you, what implementations can people take away from like what you've learned breaking through plateaus?
It really depends. So, first, you have to be consistent with your strength training. If you don't have the consistency there, then you don't know what it actually is that's causing you not to gain strength adaptations. But the second would be is a lot of people use like percentages or RPEs. I like to take a simpler approach, and I actually learned it from Starting Strength from Mark Ripito. So no matter what weight you actually get to, you're only increasing the weight by 5 pounds total. Or at least this is how Starting Strength does it. Every single time you do the lift again, you increase it by 5 pounds, and you're doing 3 sets of 5. I tweak that a little bit whenever you start plateauing from that, which I believe he does too. But it really just depends on each individual's progress and where they plateau.
think that's the Mark Rippetoe approach. Is just like, well, if you ask yourself why you're not getting stronger, it's because you're not putting weight on the bar.
Right.
So like, I do agree that is a common issue with people. They're like, well, I deadlift 315, someone put 315 on the bar.
Right. And then the next time they feel like they can do more, instead of doing 320 pounds, which no one does in the gym. No one posts on Instagram, hey, I lifted 20 pounds. No, it's I lifted 315, I lifted 355. It's always in increments of 5, and that's kind of when you can tell that they might not be progressively overloading. They're just throwing weight on the bar and then trying to lift it, expecting it to go up.
That makes sense, yeah. You need to progress slower, more intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I guess you should use a program that accounts for realistic goals instead of just slapping weight on the bar like an egotistical, like, bro.
Mm-hmm.
So for people who want to build strength, who maybe are not into the fitness scene, what can they start with to get the most like bang for their buck? Because I know I like to start with compound exercises. That's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
So if you explain.
That's generally a great place to start. I always like the barbell lifts because they're incredibly easy to load, and every gym has one.
What are it's like the golden four.
The golden four. So you have squat, deadlift, bench press, and shoulder press are like the most functional barbell strength lifts. Now you can throw in like power cleans, maybe power snatches if if their body type isn't ideal for cleans, which does happen. But those are more for power, they're not for strength. Does that make sense? So power is your ability to lift a force with a component of time. So you're trying to lift
speed.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to lift a heavy weight as fast as you can. So similar, not the same.
And I think for beginners, it's more important to focus on not speed necessarily, but more form. So perfect form. So actually maybe getting a mentor or a personal trainer or a physical therapist who has experience with the movement and who can walk you through the proper bracing sequence, and so that you can do the form flawlessly, not necessarily focusing on speed or weight to begin. But once you get there, you can start loading the bar. So how fast do you think it would take an untrained individual to get stronger? Do you know what the adaptations are?
So it depends on what your definition of stronger is. If it's just your ability to generate more force, you can see results almost the next day, if not 2 days later, because there is a neural adaptation to strength training, and it's the most rapid adaptation to strength training. It's usually within the first 4, maybe 8 weeks, and you can experience like incredible strength gains without the muscle mass gains that comes with it. Usually the muscle mass gains start around like week 6, maybe week 4.
Muscle mass like hypertrophy,
Yeah.
So you're getting wider muscle belly, so you'll see a difference in the mirror. But in the first 4 weeks or so, you will
It's
not.
all up here.
Yeah, it's all neural. So
Well, not here, but your nerves, nerve endings, but it all starts here.
Right, and so even you can think about that in the context of like trying to lift like a squat or a deadlift, or you can think about it as someone who's had a spinal cord injury and kind of loses that neural connection with their extremities.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can imagine being so weak, lacking strength so much that you cannot communicate from your brain to your body.
Mm-hmm.
So that individual maybe cannot produce the strength or the neural drive to stand up from a chair. And so we as physical therapists use strength in that context to help people regain the motor learning required to produce that strength.
Mm-hmm. And partially the reason why that happens is So your body has two different muscle fiber types, type 1 and type 2. And type 2 is kind of broken up into type 2A, type 2B, but for the most part we'll just keep it simple, 1 and 2. So your type 1s are your slow oxidative, or the very low force producing muscles that are almost always working. Those atrophy slower than the type 2s. The type 2s are your force producing, or like they're your strength muscles. Those deteriorate much faster. So within that first 4 weeks, you're retraining your brain to use those type 2 fibers. Now you can't necessarily, you can, but you can't like isolate type 2s from type 1s. But because they atrophy much quicker than type 1s, you have to retrain your brain to use those type 2s. That's where most of the strength gains come from that first 4 weeks.
Right. Trying to use the type 2s in there. But you can think about the type 1s kind of like as what a marathon sprinter would be using. Or not a sprinter, an endurance trainer, so like running a marathon. And then a sprinter like 30-second all-out maximum force production, that would be more of the type 2.
Exactly.
And so if you're, imagine sitting all day and the only muscle activation that you get is just holding yourself up from gravity, that's that low type 1 muscle activity. And so if someone were to go into the gym and try to increase their strength, maybe a little bit more muscle size, what rep range would you recommend?
So that first 4 weeks, well, I like three sets of 5 no matter what for strength training. But that first 4 weeks, I think you should be doing those same lifts, whatever strength you're trying to build. I think you should be doing those lifts at least 2 times a week, if not 3. Because, like we said, you're trying to get that neural adaptation. So you're not going to have that much relative stress on your muscles. So you're going to have a lot of stress on your muscles, but relative to like how much force you can actually produce versus how much force you are producing is going to be less than for the first 4 weeks. Does that make sense?
Kind of. So you're saying that like the absolute potential of your motor output, the first 4 weeks is going to be less, and then you're progressively getting closer to your ceiling.
And then once you start getting to that ceiling, that's when you're stressing your body to its like maximum. So that's when I would consider bumping it down to at least, or at most, 2 times a week. From there, it's kind of like it depends on the individual and what your goals are. Like what kind of strength are you trying to build?
And with what exercises, what's your timeline like? But I think for the general listener who wants to just increase body strength, so doing a lift 2 to 3 times a week, 3 sets of 5 for the compound lifts. That would be like deadlift, squat, bench press, overhead press, and doing that intentionally with overload principles in place. So you would increase the weight on the bar by 5 pounds every time you do the lift. And so is that every time between sets? Is that every day that you do the lift?
It's every day.
Every day.
So if you lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you start with 135 pounds for your squat on Monday, Wednesday you're doing 140 pounds, Friday you're doing 145 pounds. And usually you can keep this up for, I would say, 8 weeks if you're new. And then once you get there, you kind of have to tweak it.
I guess that's why when you hit one of those walls or plateaus, and you cannot no longer do the 5 pound increments, there
periodization training. I know it works. If you know how to use it and it's incorporated right, it can work. Periodization is referring to kind of like seasons. Like you'll have an intense season, you'll have a recovery season, and then you'll have like a build-up period. And you see this in like a bunch of different sports. So like in biking, you'll have like your base training, and then you start increasing the mileage, and then however they do it. But it just refers to having different set times with different set goals. That's it. Okay. But I think you might know more about periodization than I do.
So I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to take the CSCS, which is like Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. And those are the kind of coaches that would be found in sports like baseball or NFL. So they would be running the athletic training like oversight with like a master's degree. But I'm trying to learn about it. So like if you find yourself in a plateau so that you can only do X repetitions and you can no longer do that 5 pounds, so you would throttle down the reps, so you'd be focusing on hypertrophy for 3 months. So you would be doing a rep range like 8 to 12, focusing on tension, time under tension, not necessarily increasing the weight on the bar. And then for 3 months you'd be focusing on not a hypertrophy rep range, but more of a strength adaptation. So you might be doing heavy singles, 3s, 5s, and then cycling that back and forth.
Yeah. I think it's great for like actual sports. So like when you have, like if you're strength training with a football team, I think periodization is great because not only do they do intense strength training, but they also have to get hit by, 250, 300 pound dudes for 4 days a week. So
they have to train their size too to protect their joints.
Yeah.
So that's why you see people in the gym doing like exercises that you wouldn't normally do for just general health. So you have people like specifically trying to get wider necks if they're like wrestlers or linemen, so that they can protect their spine and their skulls, because contact sports are brutal.
Yeah.
You kind of need to get those hypertrophy adaptations to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And other than that, like, are there any other foundational principles of strength training that you'd like to discuss?
Track your progress.
Yep.
Track your progress. So, especially those first few weeks. I mean, you should do it every time you go to the gym, but that's a whole nother podcast. Usually, like everyone says, like, oh, I can remember to put what weight I did last time. Well, no, you can't. No one can. Everyone forgets. Write it down. Use an app, something that you will use every day to track your progress. And then I mean, it's almost rewarding to see how much progress you make.
Sure.
If you can visually see the number changes.
I've been tracking my weights for 3 years on Excel. So
there you go.
I have data from 2020. It's 2023. Yeah. So I can see those the 5 pound increments. Granted, if I was doing the 5 pound increments for 3 years straight,
oh, you'd be a monster.
Yeah. But I can see the progress. I log my injuries, how I've been feeling with particular lifts, and so that way I'm pushing myself a little bit harder than yesterday. That's the goal of every workout, is try to get a little bit more volume, intensity, progressively and safely, using, I guess, communicating with your body and also tracking things that are not weights, like sleep or nutrition or weight, like how much do you weigh, because your body weight can affect how much you can lift. And so 3 years ago, if I was 260 pounds and I lifted, 280 on the bench press, but I'm now 215 pounds, that 280 pounds on the bench press might not be so similar because I'm a different build at that time.
Right.
So tracking how much nutrition you're intaking and how much you weigh as well. So I like to weigh myself at least once a week, just to see progress over time.
Well, I think that's all we need to talk about. Once you mentioned sleep, I'm like, okay, that's it. We don't need to talk about it again.
Well, y'all enjoy your day, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.